1.
I hereby call the Brockton School Committee to order. We are running a little late. I do want to thank the Vice Chair. We just had a very long subcommittee meeting. It's Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. George M. Romm, Little Theater, Brockton High School, 470 Forest Ave, Brockton, Mass. 02301. I do need to read into the record the following. Dear visitors, welcome to a meeting of the Brockton School Committee. This is the agenda that will be discussed this evening. Please note that the hearing of visitors is included. We have 3 people that have signed in. They are limited to 3 minutes in time. If you have a statement or question, please give your name to the secretary. Mrs. Campbell has already given me the sign-in sheet. Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. In addition to attending, the public can view this meeting via television on Comcast Channel 8 or the 1071 HD version, and also online via the following link, which is www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. At this time, I will establish a quorum before we salute the American flag. I do believe we have some remote school committee members this evening. At this time, Mr. Gomes.
Here.
Mr. Vega.
Here.
Ms. Oliver is remote. Ms. Oliver?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan is remote. Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah.
Mr. Rodriguez? Vice Chair Rodriguez?
Here.
Ms. Azak?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
I'm here as well as the chair, and again, Dr. James Cobbs, acting superintendent, is also clerk, and he is here as well. At this time, I would respectfully ask everybody to please stand and salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everybody. We have formally created the meeting. We will go on to Agenda 2, a hearing of visitors. I just need to read the following to the record. Pursuant to school committee policy, each person requesting to speak shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Since this period is limited to 15 minutes, a total of 5 people shall be permitted to speak on a first-come, first-served basis. We do have 3 individuals tonight. The first one is Richard Ripley, please.
Hello. First, I want to thank you for giving me the time to speak tonight about a concern that I'm very passionate about. I want to address the illegal, dangerous, and ongoing public safety threat on BAT buses in Brockton. But before I do that, I want to stress 2 points. I want everyone in this room to understand 2 things. One, my only goal is to prevent a tragedy. I do not want to see an innocent person be hurt. That's unacceptable. There's no reason for that. And 2, I want everyone in this room to understand. Now, I know everyone in this room, you all have great jobs, you have money, you have cars, but there are tens of thousands of people in this city, including myself, who are good people. We simply have no choice but to ride the bus, and we deserve the bus to be safe. And if there's a problem on the bus, I believe the people need to be informed. I don't know, they just have to be informed, so I'm just going to stop now.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when hearing the visitors, I mean, how does that relate, BAT bus related to the school? Because you have to stay to what we have presented on our agenda, so.
I was told it could be any issue, am I wrong?
It's not anything that's school-related.
Okay, school kids take the bus.
What you're alluding to is not.
School kids ride BAT buses.
Okay.
Is that okay? Because I've seen the high school kids, during breaks and stuff,
sure.
they go out to the stores and they ride the BAT buses. Would that cover it? Okay. All right. I'm going to now, after I just said that, I want to start now. This threat has been independently investigated 4 times by the Brockton Area Transit, the City of Brockton, the Brockton Police Department, and the Office of Massachusetts State Representative Rita Mendez. And each independent investigation confirmed this illegal, dangerous threat is valid and ongoing. The problem is not one Brockton elected official since this threat began 15 months ago on February 10th, 2023, has ever publicly addressed this threat with the people of Brockton and informed them of the very dangerous nature of this threat so that they can be aware and take precautions when riding BAT to protect themselves and their families and loved ones. I myself was a 4-time victim of nearly falling down on a moving bus due to the driver's repeated negligence in violating the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 393.90. Now, I am only one rider, and I reported 80 individual illegal, dangerous safety violations by bad drivers to bad management and Mayor Sullivan. Now, just imagine how many violations there really truly are. I'm only one person. Now, bad management investigated each incident and confirmed them and disciplined each driver. Many of these incidents victimized innocent kids and disabled seniors. I don't have time to read all the details. I repeatedly pleaded with Mayor Sullivan to please issue a public statement before someone is seriously hurt. Even when a group of drivers threatened to come after me if I did not stop reporting safety violations, Mayor Sullivan remained silent. He never called me and said, "Oh, gee, Mr. Ripley, I'm so sorry this happened to you."
I'm sorry, your time is up.
That wasn't 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Ripley. Next individual that's signed in, Mr. Jamal Brathwaite, please. Mr. Brathwaite.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Brathwaite.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. My name is Jamal Brathwaite, and I'm a resident of 18 Parkview Lane here in Brockton, Massachusetts. And I wanted to raise public awareness that on Thursday, June 20th, the City Council is expected to approve the next fiscal year 2025 budget. And everybody's invited. So tell all your friends and relatives and neighbors to come on out and provide input during that public hearing. Usually, we struggle to get more than 6 residents to join, so please attend. Prior to the approval of this budget, I highly recommend that the mayor, the school committee, and the city council obtain a documented plan on how to control the current deficit spending and to prevent future deficits. An appropriate plan would include a list of documented internal controls over financial activities and reporting that provide reasonable assurance on the accuracy and reliability of financial reporting. The plan would also include a list of control deficiencies and remediation plans to manage financial reporting risks, compliance with grant administration requirements, adherence to a procurement policy, and evidence compliance with Chapter 324 of the Acts of 1990. Now, why is this so important? From my own research and interviewing staff at City Hall, as well as obtaining public information, under the current leadership in the city of Brockton, there is no internal control testing to verify the existence, design, and operating effectiveness of internal controls over financial activities by employees, vendors, nor third-party service providers. There is no practice of documenting internal controls over city spending. No consolidated lists of documented deficiencies exist which identify areas for improvement, nor remediation plans to remediate known problem areas that have been identified. What I want you all to remember is that you can't manage what you can't measure. Unless you measure risk and the effectiveness of the internal control environment over financial reporting, you don't know if it's getting better or worse. Therefore, I recommend that Mayor Sullivan and his staff provide a consolidated list of internal control deficiencies and remediation plans prior to the City Council approval of the budget. It's important that all stakeholders understand if these deficiencies are material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Secondly, Mayor Sullivan, can you please ask RSM, the external auditors contractually employed to conduct a review over the fiscal year 23 school spending, to please provide an update regarding their observations and current findings to the City Council at the next Finance meeting on June 10th. In absence of effective internal controls, we will continue to have deficits in the City of Brockton, so we need an internal control framework. If you don't know what it is, please spend 5 minutes to Google internal controls. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brathwaite. Last individual is Mr. George Brickhouse. Mr. Brickhouse, please. Good evening, Mr. Brickhouse.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and everyone here. First and foremost, it is often said that if 2 or more of us are gathered, then God is in the room with us. And so I have to believe that God is here, And I have to give props to him for being here and for the work that is done in this room. The stones that it takes for those to step forward and say what they feel in their hearts, but even more importantly, the faith that Brockton can move forward as to what it was at one point in time. And I got motivated once again by an article in the Empty Prize, May the 31st. I'm just going to read just little blurbs that a couple of those who sit here made reference to in that article. According to the resolution which Mr. Rodriguez cited, that increasing the dropout age will reduce racial and class disparities in education attainment. Good stuff, backed up by records, and it's something that can make a big difference. Also, Mr. Vega, the idea that Brockton could be at the forefront of what could be an incredible, powerful adjustment is very exciting. I think it is a highlight what goes on. I think it is to highlight what goes on here in Brockton, the kind of thinking and commitment we have to social justice. Now, I'm going to jump real quick and put the CAT, Critical Analytical Thinking program, in the mix. In terms of the numbers of young people that we have coming into Brockton, that if in the grade level of the program starts in the 5th grade and the 10th grade, if we do not in the 5th grade take the time and the effort and the energy to focus on critical analytical thinking to new people, to our culture, then we do them a disservice. I had others that in the area that I was going to go off into this evening, but based on what I've seen here, what I've heard here, and the commitment to do what is right for the community, as I said, I believe critical analytical thinking, my team, the CAT team can make a very big difference in how Brockton is for the future. I appreciate your time and God bless.
Brickhouse. Have a good evening. Thank you, sir. We're going to go on to agenda item 3, Report of Superintendent of Schools, Dr. James Cobbs. Dr. Cobbs.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, school committee members. Item A, Superintendent Report of Schools will postpone the recognitions to Thursday, July 27th. The next item is item B, Teaching and Learning, Procurement and RFP Process by City Solicitor Megan Bridges and City Chief Procurement Officer Mr. Mike Morris.
I do want to thank the solicitor and Mr. Morris, who arrived promptly at 7. Mike and Megan, thank you so much for being here and for your patience. The floor is yours, and we truly are here tonight to listen and learn from both of you relative to procurement and RFP process. Good evening, Ms. Morris.
Good evening, school committee members, Mayor, and Dr. Cobbs. My name is Mike Morrison. I'm the city's Chief Procurement Officer, and I am pleased to be in front of you tonight, this evening, to try to answer any procurement-related questions that you might have.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Nice to see you, sir. Nice to meet you. I'm Megan Bridges. I'm the city solicitor. The law department works closely with Mr. Morris and in the procurement department. I certainly would take any questions you have. If there are no questions, let me start there. Does anyone have any initial questions?
If I could, Madam Solicitor and Mr. Morris, Mike, do you mind just expressing what procurement is? Because you hear this word procurement, what it is, because there's a threshold of 50,000 in the city, 100,000 in the schools. Like, could you just give us kind of, I'm a dummy, so if you can dummy it down for me.
Yeah, sure. The procurement laws were created in the early 1980s, and the purpose was to try and prevent favoritism and fraud while at the same time increasing competition in municipal purchasing. One of the most common Mass General laws regarding procurement is Chapter 30B. Under Chapter 30B, they set rules and regulation and guidelines for purchasing of goods and services. I'll just go over the thresholds real quick. In purchasing goods and services less than $10,000, the school department would need to follow, and the city would need to follow sound business practices. From $10,000 to $100,000, they're required to solicit at least 3 quotes, and over $100,000, the requirement is to conduct a formal procurement in the form of a bid or an RFP. And with any purchase of goods and services over $10,000, a written contract is required.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. Before I open up to the committee members, how long have you served in this role?
In my 29th year.
29th year. And so as the Chief Procurement Officer for the city, you're based at City Hall, but all departments would report to you, including the school department. And in the past, you've had the ability to designate. Could you just express that to the membership? You've designated someone on the school side or people on the school side?
Sure. Being the 7th largest city in Massachusetts, it's a little difficult to handle all the procurement for both the city and school side. So in the past, I have delegated the powers of procurement to individuals on the school side, and that's in the form of a delegation form, which is filled out and submitted to the state's IG's office, Inspector General's office.
Any questions for the Chief Procurement Officer at this time? Those that are in attendance here? Mr. Sullivan, please.
Thanks for coming in, Mr. Morris.
You're welcome.
The question I'm not sure we even have a procurement office in the school department right now. I mean, we did have one, we don't have any more. Are we in trouble for doing that?
No, I don't believe you're in trouble. I think just the position needs to be filled, and I know there's a lot of budget constraints, of course, so I think the school department is actively working on it. In the meantime, my office I'm more than willing to help out where I can.
So, would the school department send you stuff to request some kind of procurement?
I think going forward, there would have to be like a sit-down and meeting to discuss a game plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gomes, please.
Well, thank you. So when I used to work for the BR on behalf of the city, we used to do procurements, but we had the assistance of HUD. For someone to be able to do procurement, do they need any license, any specialized training, anything like that?
It's not a requirement, but there is a certification, MCPPO, which is the Mass Certification of Public Purchasing Officials. So it's good to have, but it's not a requirement.
And would you guys at the city be able to provide that training or direct someone?
That training is conducted by the state.
By the state.
Yep.
I mean, more after getting the training, if someone needs to go under your wings to, learn the process, with practice, is that something you guys can provide for someone that would be on the school side?
I could provide on-the-job training, yes, but I'm not able to issue a certification.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes. Mr. Vega, followed by Ms. Azak, and then before I go to the folks that are remote, Jorge.
Ms. Bridges, Mr. Morris, thank you for being here tonight. During our hearing of visitors, had a visitor who was talking about internal controls. Can you speak to the internal controls that exist around procurement? Is it something to be concerned about? If not, what are the examples that one can give to demonstrate that the procurement office has its own metrics for measuring and managing procurement?
There are internal controls in place. I review every single requisition that's submitted or a certain amount. I conduct the procurements myself. We have in place a contract approval routing form that goes along with each contract that's reviewed. So in my opinion, the procurement controls are in place, proper procurement controls. I don't know, do you want to speak to any controls or?
Not necessarily the aspect of control, but procurement is one aspect of this conversation, and contract management and facilitation of the resources that come with whatever the procurement was for are a whole nother subset. So in terms of procurement, the Inspector General's office can be involved. You can certainly make appeals there, which folks have done, and we've defended very successfully. Mr. Morris is been an over 20-year employee and well-versed in procurement. What's a common misunderstanding is that just like I'm only a lawyer, I'm not a bus driver, for example, Mike Morris is the procurement officer, and he knows the laws around procurement and the processes and procedures with which procurements must meet in order to be legal. But he himself is not the holder of all subject matter specific and technical aspects necessary for the creation of the RFP. It is a true Venn diagram between the department who needs the service or the vendor and the procurement department or the larger department over the whole purchase. And the simple way of saying all those words is Mike doesn't know what Mike doesn't know. If we're just going to use the bus driver analogy for a moment, Mike is unaware of the bus routes. So it's not as simple as calling up procurement and saying, hey, I need an RFP for bus drivers. Like, my office manages the workers' comp program for the entire city, and we have a third-party administrator. Mike assisted us in putting out a procurement for that, but we had to work with an expert on the analytics and the data of the cost of the program and how arduous it was going to be for the third-party administrator so they could effectively cost out the services that we need. So I bring that to you to highlight two things. Procurement is not an island, and contract management and procurement are very intertwined. The department head is responsible for the contract management. The department head signs the invoices that come under that contract, not the procurement officer. So there really was no issue with your procurements. There was an issue with the contract management at the school department. And what I'd like to do is just point you all to your own policies, because this is a very sophisticated body. Some of the members have been on the body for quite a while. You have very specific policies over procurement and budgeting and procurement process, and I will happily give you those sites. And while I'm pulling them up, my office and Mike and school committee council have been working very intimately with Dr. Cobbs over reviewing aspects of school committee, either services or real property, that need intervention in terms of an RFP prior to next school year. And things are not in terrible shape. The bus acquisition and development of a transportation department left some holes that we are trying to fill, namely McKinney-Vento students, their transportation is subject to procurement. Our general ed students, their transportation is not subject to procurement, namely because we provide our own buses. But SPED transportation, not subject to procurement. So you all have at least 5 populations of students, because SPED students could also be McKinney-Vento students, okay? And you heard Mr. Morris say that the threshold is $100,000 for the purchase of services. And that is lawfully true, but that is not what your policies say. Your policies only allow you to purchase up to $50,000 in goods and services without competitive bidding. That law changed in 2022. on the 50 to 100 threshold. It's new. So you all should not be relying on that as a premise for which to guide your procurement decisions. And then, so you all have them, and of course, happy to talk in as much detail as you'd like, but DJ in your policies is where purchasing begins. And DJE are procurement requirements, which mention the $50,000 threshold I just discussed. And then DJA is the purchasing authority. So it's vested within your super and your CFO. There has been, I think, a decentralization, which is allowed. Mr. Morris is the city's procurement officer, and of course, we all have to work together. But there is a decentralization. The schools have been responsible for their own procurement, as far as I can understand, for a large amount of years. I've only worked here since 2016. But, so you have policies on it. They tell you that, what the considerations should be. That whether you need procurement or not, lawfully need it or not, doesn't mean it might not be the best process. So, my office, you all have a myriad of procurement. Trish has been excellent, and she's helping people buy from the state bid list now that maybe didn't before. We're trying to simplify things. The main things that we're working on is what you all discussed on your facilities moves, real property RFPs related to the bus depot, potentially the re-engagement center, 440 Belmont, and then separately, there needs to be a conversation on the bus RFP, the services, the transportation services. I think that's everything I was hoping to cover. You all have very good policies. You could update it if you choose on the $100,000 threshold. But your policies give you the authority to, get information from the folks who are in charge or delegated with the authority over these processes and how they're working. And the facilities ones were fine. It's just the contracts weren't really managed well. And now they are all expired, and we have a lot of other priorities, so we're managing all of that. Mr. Chair, through you, Dr. Cobbs, did anything we missed?
No, I don't have anything to add. Just, I was hoping tonight to have the policies that, the RFPs that we're working on for the transportation and 440, but they're not quite ready yet for.
Not quite. You all, there was a triple net lease was how it was being solicited before, and I don't necessarily think that's necessary, so I think you should revamp that. And then it is in draft in terms of the bus depot. That one is, I can confidently say it's in draft. Yes.
Mr. Vega, any follow-ups on that?
So going back to the original question about internal controls, then is it fair to say that questions about internal controls really lie with department heads, and not within the procurement office?
I think Mr. Morris answered the question very appropriately. There's a two-step process. You have to put in for a requisition before you get a purchase order. So at least as far as I'm aware, if the requisition is above a certain threshold, then that triggers follow-up steps. Is there a contract? What is the not-to-exceed amount on the contract? If there is one, have we exceeded the cap? I'm sure there are other considerations. I am unaware of the processes that occur on the day-to-day operations of the school department, but it is more contract management.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. Ms. Azek?
Thank you. Actually, City Solicitor Bridges already answered my question, but thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair, any questions at this time?
And I've talked with our legal counsel, Kevin Bezant here. When you say it's in draft mode, where is that process? When you say draft mode, are we just still trying to get the fine language, and what does that draft mode?
So earlier when I talked about the Venn diagram, I work in the law department, so our office does not traditionally draft RFPs for other departments because I'm not a subject matter expert in whatever the department needs. So what I did was track down what had been published previously, because that's the best place to start, was what were you asking for before, and that's what we did. So Cliff Rhodes from Kevin's office is working directly with Dr. Cobbs and myself, and he's the one who drafted it.
Okay. How soon, I mean, I know I talked to Kevin, how soon is this draft mode, like how long is this going to take in order to put this out? We are in June. And I know you mentioned that the 440 Belmont and then the office space for transportation and Foster Street, that's all one RFP
No.
total, or is it separate three? I just want to understand that.
They're all
I'm
separate
not
RFPs.
confusing it.
It's use specific.
You specific. So each building has its own RFP drafted up. So
And you should be aware, I believe you all discussed this already, but you're putting out a solicitation for what you need. You don't necessarily get to pick the location.
no, I know it's
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand that you need a warehouse space, which I'm not sure if that's part of, putting that out. I'm not sure if that contract is expired. It's still
That
binding.
one was put back out at a very odd time, and there, as of right now, was never a contract reduced to writing after the bid. 91 Foster Street was put out to bid. There was a responsive bidder, December 2022 or January 2022, or 2023, excuse me. But there was never a contract reduced to writing. That's 91 Foster Street. The bus depot, they expires June 30th. 440 Belmont expires June 30th.
Okay. So those need to go out like ASAP. I'm not sure if Kevin, I know we've talked, so like, once we get that RFP, how soon is that going to be published? And then the other piece is, I know the school district, but is that RFP going to go to Mr. Morris because the school side still doesn't have the procurement person?
As I stated earlier, I'm more than willing to assist, and I can conduct the procurement of it. I would have to have a meeting. I have never sat down with anyone from the school side to put in what the school needs for space needs, such as square footage, number of parking spaces. So I think a meeting would be in order. I wouldn't try to recreate the wheel. As Megan mentioned, there is a number of bids out there that have been put out, I think, 3 years ago for the re-engagement center. So I don't think there's much that needs to be changed.
Okay. On the procurement side, I know we've had a lot of discussion. I've talked to Dr. Cobbs. I mean, I think at this point it is critical that a job ad goes out like as soon as possible for us to hire procurement. We can't wait any longer. This is the reason why we're so lagged behind, because we don't have a procurement person, and Mike's office is only 2 employees and he's doing city side to take on the school side. So, Dr. Cobbs, do we take that for a vote now, or is this something that we already have a position that's already in the books that we just need to fill? Since we had, I believe, 2 individuals that were doing dual roles on the school side, and now we have none. I don't know which.
We do not have a procurement position in the budget right now. We had a project manager position that was in 2024, but we do not have a procurement position in the budget.
Okay. If you could allude to, how important this position is. I don't know if Trish.
It's very important. As you alluded to, I only have 2 staff members, and one of the staff members is paid out of taxpayer monies. The other staff person is a grant fund, so that runs out soon.
Okay. So what does this body need to do in order for us to get this position on the books? This is like something that should have been done months ago. And I think it should be advertised as soon as tomorrow. I mean, I don't have that authority, but, and that person is basically going to be, I know we're still building out our finance office, but I don't know, Trish, if you want to chime in, like, how does our budget office look with the staffing and the responsibilities? Because when I look at the procurement, I think this person should be assigned, correct me if I'm wrong, to the finance office, business office, because they are dealing.
They've always been connected, yes.
Okay.
Yes. It would be wonderful to have someone in our office who had MCPPO certification. It would help a lot.
And have we looked if we have any employees currently that hold that can do a dual role in the meantime, or is this something that we have to, this person's full-time? I mean, I don't know, like, you know, from my conversations is this person is basically busy for, I don't know, January to June, May, I'm not sure, like.
Yeah. From what I see, it would not have to be full-time year-round, because it has its peaks, you know, and valleys of when things would have to be procured. For instance, most of the contracts would have to be in place for January 1st. So there would be a lot of work that would have to be done from February to March to June to get all those contracts in place. That's probably the busiest time of the year. I have offered to have one of the finance staff members take the MCPPO course, and that person was very excited and willing to learn that. And it does take some experience or training. So it's not, even if someone's certified, you can go out and try to be your own procurement person, but you'll struggle a little bit, so you do need some guidance and help, which, you know, Mike would be a great resource, I would be a great resource, and the state itself has an 800 hotline that you can call day and night, so there is a lot of help out there. So I feel that it would be not a full-time position in our office, but I think if someone were assigned to that half-time, but not meaning half of a week, meaning those few months between February and March to June would probably be their heaviest time to work in procurement, while other times of the year, they would do more finance type of work. So it could and should fit into our department.
So I know we have part-time positions, so is it fair to say that if we were to move forward, I mean, that this procurement person's a part-time employee? Does that, I mean, I'm just trying to understand, does that make sense, or does it make sense to, you know, work with the city side, which is going to hamper all the stuff that he has to do, and wait? I mean, I don't know what the process is. How long does it take for somebody to actually get approved to be a procurement officer, because there's licenses and
right. There's a series of classes that you have to take. I believe most of them are online now and self-paced. So someone could probably, within a few months, you can get MCPPO certified. It depends when the state offers the classes. The classes aren't offered all the time, all year long. But the popular classes that would be needed are pretty regularly scheduled. I know in the past, they have had a full-time procurement officer, but at the down times when procurement was not needed, they did other things in the office. So procurement itself in our school district would not have to be a full-time job.
Okay. I mean, at this point, I mean, like, how do we remedy this process? I mean, do we look at a temp service? I mean,
There's no temp service that could do that. Yeah, you'd need
temporary employment. I mean,
you'd have to get someone who would be interested in that type of work, because it's very specific. I mean, it borderlines, and I don't mean to belittle the legal department, but it borders on legal issues. So someone has to be very willing to learn legal technical terms and things like that. And you have to abide by all of the laws and such that surround procurement.
All right, thank you. I mean, my position is I think that the district needs to hire somebody ASAP. That should have been done months ago. So I don't know if we need to take a vote on this, if legal counsel or solicitor can direct us if that's not something that's on the, on the books now. We're at a standstill.
If I might just, I talked about the policies a bit, and I want to read from you for DJA, and then I'll answer your question. Since public purchasing entails the commitment and expenditures of public funds, the policy of the school committee shall be that the purchasing authority for the school department shall rest in the office of the chief financial officer. Purchasing must be management-oriented rather than simply service-oriented. Functions such as planning and scheduling, bid solicitation, evaluation, award, contract administration, quality assurance, and surplus property transfer and disposal shall be the responsibility of the office of the chief financial officer. So I think I agree with a lot of what Trish said. I think where you all have room to add duties to the procurement officer is your purchasing agents need training, and your contract administrators need training. So those duties could lie with your procurement person. I don't think you all need a vote on if you want to hire this person or not. You've had one before. It's just resource allocation, and that you have a budget with lines, and so your money is allocated, so you'd have to go reallocate your resources. But I don't think you need a vote on it. It's just personnel, and it is, if they're not a deputy superintendent, it's up to the super if there is the resources available to make the hire. It's an important job, although maybe not full-time every day. You all just voted on $232 million request for your budget. So when I talk about things like that, I qualify that as a $232 or $250 million corporation. That's what you all are the governing body of. So you need someone advising you on purchasing decisions.
Thank you. My sentiment is, Dr. Cobbs, I think we should move on this swiftly. Talk to Dr. Moran and make sure we get a job ad out and fill this position as soon as we can.
Just point of information, if we could. Mr. Morris, you shared with me today that you have designated some power on the school side to Joe Campbell for IT purposes, correct? I think that'd be important just for the committee to know that.
Yes, I did that, I think, last month, yes.
And that's something that is just defined in scope for IT services?
Yes, I believe it's a camera project or
Okay.
IT related.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Vice Chair? I agree with you 100% on that. Ms. Azak, please.
Thank you. Actually, just as a reminder, some of the new members, we haven't had anyone in that position since, I want to say, late spring of 2023. And we haven't had any account review meetings. We don't have, and we used to do bid review, and we haven't had any bid review since we started meeting August 31st. I think the last bid review that came before us was Mr. Petronio back in July or maybe early August. So it's very important that we do have someone, like Ms. Boyer indicated, it's not just procurement, but I believe that that person that was in that position did the accounts review as far as POs and getting them approved, bid reviews.
Contracts.
Yeah, so it was multiple positions. So I echo Mr. Rodriguez and the chair. It's very important that we do get this position filled. So, I mean, if your recommendation is part-time to start, then just get someone in there part-time to start, and then we can revisit it. But I would authorize the acting superintendent as well to get that filled. And same with the RFPs, because we do need to make a decision on, where the re-engagement is.
That's right.
And that's very important. So it's time sensitive. Some things are probably not as time sensitive. But as a reminder, I'm not sure, Mr. Sullivan was on the committee, Mr. Rodriguez. I thought Foster Street renewed every year in June. And I don't remember ever, I thought there was like some kind of a contract that just renewed. We'd get a one-year contract. And I thought there was something that renewed in June.
I believe it was maybe 1 year with 2 1-year options.
I think so. Yes, you are correct. You
and
are correct.
Expires June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azek. Ms. Oliver or Mr. Sullivan, did you have any comments or questions at this time?
Not at this time. No questions.
Thank you both. Any other questions for either Mr. Morris or Solicitor Bridges?
I have a comment to
Oh,
make.
sure, Trish, yeah.
So, by law, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think by law, municipalities can only engage in a 3-year contract maximum, and you can only solicit contracts for 4 or 5 years if you get city council approval first. Is that correct?
It's correct for purchase of goods and services, but not for real property. Real property, you can have a lease up to 99 years.
Yeah. So even if there was a contract to renew a property, or well, you said 99 years, but if for any other contract, even if it renewed for 1 or 2 years, it can only max out at 3 years unless you get prior approval for 5, other than the real property, as he mentioned.
Thank you. Point of information, thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, I want to thank Solicitor and Mr. Morris for...
Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking the wrong way. Vice Chair.
Allude to that 99 years, like the contract, if I'm understanding this, we can make a property from 1 year to 99 years?
Correct. But a contract for the purchase of goods and services, if the contract is greater than 3 years, you need city council approval. For real property, it's different. It's a lease. You can lease a property up until 99 years.
But we still need a city council approval no matter what?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Megan, thank you. Mike, thank you.
You're welcome.
See you tomorrow.
All right. All right.
Have a good night. Superintendent, the next one is update from TJ Plan Open Architects. I didn't know if he was still on, or
I'm not sure if he's standing by. He pretty much already did
gave us an update in the subcommittee.
Right, subcommittee.
Mr. Plant.
I'm still here,
Oh, hi, TJ. Good evening.
It's been a long night, but I'm here. I guess, do you want to just do the high-level view instead of the detail that I gave in the subcommittee, or do you want the detailed view and the high-level, just to go through it again for the full committee?
Well, the full committee was on the subcommittee as well as a member of the whole, so you could, if nobody objects, you could just do
I'll just do the high-level,
Sure.
just kind of walk the group through it, because I know it's late. Let me just share my screen so we can walk through it. So, can everybody see? This is the high-level view, and I have details. You can see there's a detail tab to the right of the 5:30 date. But long story short, this is the updated version of the projection that Open Architects has provided from January, and now updated through basically May 30th. And we're going to update it again in the coming days, or so, to make sure that all the changes and the reclasses have hit. Part of the challenge has been lack of encumbrances that SPS has not been allowed to do, so we aren't able to take into account some of the bigger contracts that we would normally encumber funds for the entire year. There's been a creation of a variety of new accounts that we needed to factor in, and there's still some invoices coming in that are kind of unknown that typically tie out to the encumbrances, so there's a good little picture of what needs to be spent between now and June 30th. However, we're in June. We have a pretty good sense that we are on the right track, and I can't say enough about what the school committee and the cabinet and the team that meets several times a week, sometimes, if not at least weekly, to talk about what's going on in the city and the schools and what that actually means. So, long story short, after all the decisions are made, the deficit for net school spending stands at 7.6 million. We talked about this earlier, but the important piece of that is that the superintendent and his cabinet and the school committee have set aside numerous one-time revenue sources, grants, and other areas to help offset the deficit to bring it into balance. So you'll see on line 7.6, that matches the kind of deficit we're projecting. We added in the $2.1 million related to the incentive payouts, vacation payouts, sick payouts, severance payouts. That's the 3-year average, so we intend that to be in that ballpark, but we'll know more because this week, I believe it's this week that employees can elect to get their lump sum payments and severance. Trish and her team have reallocated $5.1 million and change to ESSER 3. That freed up general fund dollars as it relates to, I believe it was custodial costs that were approved by DESE. So that freed up money to help address the deficit. The cabinet did set aside over $9 million, almost $10 million actually, for this exact purpose of money that was not really spent, 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year. We brought this down because there was $981,000 in encumbered payroll, and it's not a big deal to encumber the payroll, but it was already factored into our payroll projections for the end of fiscal year 24. So we reduced it to $8,093,000. We're still investigating the PD overtime, and we have $1.1 million in what we know to be true of invoices and lease costs and other areas of the budget. And projected for net school spending is about $2.6 million surplus. That can go up because we are assuming 100% of OTPS being spent. And if the OTPS is less than 100%, then that adds to the surplus. If there are some invoices that straggle in, that adds to the deficit or takes away from the surplus. But we're reasonably confident that Brockton has gone from potential $19 to $25 million deficit based upon what we knew in January, and all the decisions that were made in the intervening months that they may actually end up with a small surplus, or you may end up with a small surplus in net school spending. And the other side of it, we're projecting an $8.5 million deficit in non-net school spending. And the city and school department committed or agreed that the circuit breaker funding that existed could go towards the eligible expenses related to the transportation budget, and that is reflected at the $4.9 million. And then the community schools costs are showing as well for a deficit of $4.1 million that the CFO and I and the school department have discussed of how, and it was discussed in the subcommittee meeting as well, of how that's going to be covered through anticipated surpluses within the city's operating general fund. And then the final piece is the debate that happened and will continue to happen over the school choice revolving revenue, where that should go and if it's appropriate for non-net or net school spending eligibility. I know that was a very quick version of that. Happy to take any questions. Happy to go through the detail if necessary, but that is our best thinking at this time, recognizing that it's subject to change.
Thank you, Mr. Plant. And again, you did a great job at the subcommittee meeting. Any questions for TJ relative to, this is the second time we've seen this tonight. Any comments or questions? Mr. Vega, followed by Mr. Gomes, please.
In light of some of the conversations that we were having previously in subcommittee, the school choice revolving fund that's there, is that something that can be tapped into for some of the elements we were discussing previously?
So this is revenue that's generated over the last few years, and my understanding is it can be for any school purpose, both net and non-net, and that is kind of where I left the debate between the city and the schools to determine. And I have not done the full research of of that to know if it's 100% freely allocated to either side of the ledger.
I got you. And just as a follow-up to that, is there a negative to tapping into that resource?
It's one of the few left. I would argue that between circuit breaker, ESSER, McKinney-Vento revenue, and numerous other one-time revenues that the school department identified to help close the budget gap, there are not a lot of things on the school side as a way to address any future needs and or issues that may arise or budget problems that may arise. So it's kind of one of the last few remaining balances or funds available to assist if something is needed or any changes are made to the school budget.
Thank you.
Mr. Gomes, please.
Yeah, TJ, if you could go up a little bit. Right there, the 1.170, and it says does not include grant deficit, decrease invoice from 1 million to 100K. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I think Dr. Lobillo spoke about the contract with Catapult that he is engaged in for unmet needs. It took a little while to get the contract in place. We were holding about $1 million to address the special ed unmet needs. Between now and June 30th, all that we anticipate to be spent is about $100,000. And we reduced the $1 million liability down to $100,000, which increased the surplus by $900,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Knowing
Gomes.
that, let me rephrase that. Knowing that, had lots of conversations with CFO Boyer and Dr. Lobillo about what exactly the FY25 appropriation is. And we know it doesn't necessarily meet all the needs, but the appropriation in FY25 is sufficient enough to start to address those needs.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes. Anybody else here in the chamber, back in City Hall? Mrs. Sullivan, or Ms. Oliver?
I have a quick question. TJ, for the bill, invoices, and lease, when will you have the final number for that? I know we're coming close to the end of the June, and also with the grant, how is that going to have the total number?
So we're working very closely with Trish and her team on the grants to try to mitigate any potential deficits in the grants. Most of the entitlement grants are 27-month grants, so there's some leeway and some wiggle room that we need to work through with her and her team. As far as the prior bills and invoices, I just want to put it in perspective of when Dr. Cobbs and his team and I met, we talked about putting a call out to start converting or entering purchase orders, and it's $6.19 million in the month of May for the general fund and $7.7 million if you include all funds, grants, and revolving accounts of funding that was processed just in the month of May alone. So I think we're in pretty good shape. I don't know if there's a lot of things hiding out there, but you may recall a few months back there were some bills of prior year that were asked by the school committee to authorize. So I can't say for sure that there aren't a few things out that we're not aware of.
Can we get like a more update by like next meeting?
Yeah, our goal is to run it. So actually my goal is to run it again, hoping by Friday or on Friday, because the reclasses to ESSER should have hit and some of those other areas should have hit. So we'll have a much better sense of if this is going up or down based upon that in the coming days or so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Mrs. Sullivan, any comments or questions at this time?
Oh, thank you.
That concludes TJ's update. TJ, thank you for joining us all night tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair, please.
One final question. This was on the Schedule 19. I know I attended a couple of months back. I attended the cabinet meeting, and that number that was presented, TJ, correct me if I'm wrong on this, it was down to 2 million. I know you guys are still trying to figure it out. And then now it's up at just a little bit over 4 million. Do we have an actual breakdown of what that 4 million actually cost and how we have that breakdown and what we're really responsible for? Because that Schedule 19 can, I know the committee voted for 232, but if that Schedule 19 number comes down, I think, the committee can actually, this is just my opinion, amend the 232 to reflect what the Schedule 19 is, monies that we are not responsible for. Meaning, like, if it comes down another 2 million on the Schedule 19, I would support a 230 versus a 232 because it's offsetting that Schedule 19. And I think that, this body needs to know exactly what those charges are when it comes to the Schedule 19 cost, and then also relative to the Medicare reimbursement. I'm still curious to know, how much money that is that we actually average a year in receiving. Is it 1 million, 2 million? I don't know. We're still waiting for the concrete answers on that. And knowing that that's the work of the school district, that could also reduce our cost on requesting funds as well. Do you have any of those figures, and how long would that take to actually draft that up? Because it's when we hear the city CFO saying that the school actually crafted that Schedule 19, it's somewhere broken down, and if there's an agreement with the school side in the city of what that Schedule 19 cost is, we can do a reduction on what the request of the school committee is if those numbers do come down to reflect the 232.
A lot of research has got into how Brockton has calculated Schedule 19 in recent years. There is a workbook that was generated, I believe, by BPS and provided to the city auditor to kind of complete based upon a formula of spending versus net school spending and what that means percentage-wise. There is still a lot of work that needs to be done. I know Solicitor Bridges and her team are working on actually getting, because legally you're supposed to have a formal agreement between the city and the schools that is approved by the commissioner of DESE that says we agree that these are all municipal services in support of schools. So that is something that the city and DPS are trying to come into compliance with. That's going to take a little while. I think the $4 million versus the $6 million is I know it's part of the overall net school spending number that was recommended to the city council by the city. The $2 million extra was already part of that 227 roughly, and that was by virtue of looking at some of the administrative costs related to that. Still a lot of work needs to be done on the health insurance that is provided by the city and paid for by the city on behalf of the schools, because that number is a large number that should be reconciled. So the Schedule 19 piece still requires work, but I think we're heading in the right direction as the school system for some additional resources available for appropriation for fiscal 25. Are we there yet? No. Do we need to do a little bit more work? Absolutely. But I think the conversation has been rightly had, and the debate is going to continue of what level of services does the city provide to support the school system, and making sure that it's fair and accurate for BPS students. So I hope that answers the question on Schedule 19. The revenue related to, I believe you said Medicare, but I believe it's municipal Medicaid. It's the students that are eligible that get services that the school department does the random moment in time studies, that does all the reporting of what the services the students are eligible for and receive. And I don't have a revenue number as it relates to that. I'm guessing the size of Brockton, and please don't hold me to this and don't quote me on this, but I'm guessing 3 to 4 million is the number that Brockton would be receiving in municipal Medicaid. That revenue belongs to the city to help them meet net school spending unless otherwise appropriated to the school department. I can defer to CFO Clarkson to know. I believe that's probably in his revenue estimates as it relates to the overall city budget. But I understand the conversation and the debate. I understand the work that the school department does on behalf of getting the municipal Medicaid. And in my prior life, we actually pushed that cost of the contract I believe you had with Public Consulting Group onto the city in order to say, if you get the revenue, you get the expense of the contract, but that doesn't take away the work that BPS employees need to do. Now, that might have been a long answer to your question, but I hope that covers what you were asking.
No, it does. It's. I mean, when you say 3 to 0.4, what Dr. LeBois alluded to the committee is that those funds come in on a. Correct me if I'm wrong, Trish. Those revenues, reimbursements, come in a quarterly format. So if it comes in a quarterly format, and we don't know what those hard numbers are, so how is the city projecting what they were actually giving us? Or is this something that's yearly projected that we know on an average we're getting 3 million, so the city's like, okay, this is what we're going to give the schools, but you know, I believe it's what 160 that we pay, if I'm off by a few, it's around 160, but the school district is doing all the work, and then we don't see none of those reimbursement costs that's going to the city side. And you know, as Dr. LeBois said, how do we share that burden in order for us to receive those funds? Does the city take on that contract? Or, I mean, what's the grave effect on that on the school district? Because, when I asked the question a few weeks ago, that it's not a requirement for us to do all that legwork to receive the reimbursement, and we're not getting those funds back on the school side. So if it's not a requirement, I'm not trying to be the bully in the room, but why are we doing it?
So the short answer to the question is yes, it's projectable based upon historical data that is provided to Public Consulting Group and then by Public Consulting Group to Medicaid to get the reimbursements. I have not done those projections on behalf of BPS. I certainly can get the data from the city side. I don't have access to the city side revenue at this point, but I can get access to the revenue, and we can certainly project out what it looks like and what, all that stuff. That's the easy part. It's just the policy question comes for the debate between the school committee and the mayor and the city council is, where does the revenue belong? And right now, Mass General Law, all revenue that comes into the city belongs to the general fund unless otherwise appropriated. And I don't mean to be flip, but that's where it stands until a decision is made between both bodies that says we're going to cost share, or not cost share, we're going to revenue share, and we're going to kind of do something differently as it relates to the overall financial health of both city and BPS.
So it's fair to say that if we are projecting Medicaid reimbursement in the amount of, roughly $3 million, and we got to the 227, so that's an extra 3, so it brings us to 230, which is a lot more than what was, that we're asking for. But we have to have that commitment on the city side that those funds are actually going to come back to the schools in order to support the staffing levels.
So that is a policy decision based upon what the bodies agree upon, because, well, first of all, don't quote me on the 3 to 4 million. That's just an estimate, because I know.
Yeah, I'm throwing the estimate as well.
Between 5 and 7 million is what Springfield brings in, and comparable populations, so we're slightly bigger, but I would imagine you guys would be in that ballpark. as a district. I think really it comes down to whatever the city's balance sheet ends up being and how that interplays with their balance sheet. If that 4 million, we'll just call it 4, is like 4 million, and that's recurring and part of their overall local receipts, then that could be a significant blow to the city. And I'm not sure and I don't want to put words in the mayor and anyone else's mouths, I don't know enough about the balance sheet on the city side to know that that is catastrophic at the end of the day. All I know is right now it belongs to the city unless otherwise appropriated.
Thank you.
TJ, Springfield's a little larger, but it's not the city of champions, so we beat you.
In the city at first, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, you got basketball, I'll give you that. Any other questions for Mr. Plant? Seeing none. TJ, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
There's one more question, I believe.
We do?
Does Oliver, do you have a question?
Do you have a question?
She's passed.
Oh, Ms. Oliver. Ms. Oliver, do you have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Yep.
DJ, or Troy, somebody, are we able to see the agreement between the city and us when it comes to the Schedule 19, especially for new members?
There is no agreement.
Absolutely. My understanding is it has to go through school committee approval and most likely city council and or just the mayor, but there needs to be both sides coming to an agreement on what the charges are.
Especially the last one they signed, because I don't think I've ever seen an agreement, so I would like to...
I'll let the city solicitor correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if one exists on paper. At least the commissioner of DESI was, or his team was not aware of a formal one that has been adopted and approved by DESI.
Yeah, the solicitor's no longer here, but that's accurate information to my knowledge, that there is not one that exists. We need to formulate one and execute it on behalf of both parties.
Okay, we'll start working on that one.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Any other questions by anybody for Mr. Plant? TJ, thank you again. Have a good evening.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Next agenda item, items to refer to subcommittee? Is there anything to go to subcommittee, Doctor? No? Okay.
Not this time, Mayor.
I'm still trying to figure out how this part of it works, but if possible, at some point in the near future, I think the policy subcommittee, I'd just put out the idea that we have an examination of our current makeup and the efficiencies that might be gained from smaller subcommittees, I think tonight was a good example, right? We did this of the whole, and while it's optional for somebody to attend, we voted because we had a quorum. So to get subcommittees back to the point where they are used for recommendations, but not votes, would be, I think, to the group's benefit. But I think that's a discussion that would have to go back to the policy committee of the whole to review. So I'd like to just put that out there.
Mr. Vice Chair.
I just wanted to chime in that the finance committee is a committee of the whole as well. So
yes, but if we do that with everything, then every subcommittee will be quorum. And I think whether it's intentional or not, the number of meetings that every single person would have to attend may actually attribute to a less desire to talk about the myriad of topics that we got to talk about. So but I think there are a lot of committees that don't need to be committees of the whole. But maybe we need to examine policies that ensure equity in terms of voices and opportunities. But I think we've kind of shied away from the efficiency of a subcommittee because we haven't addressed those concerns.
that was only for this year because of what we're dealing with. Come January, or when we convene after this budget process, we can have that. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Getting back to that 4-member subcommittee and looking at what committee should be a committee of the whole and what shouldn't be. But that's a policy. So, and myself, the members will work with Dr. Cobbs and legal counsel, and also City Solicitor Bridges, that's been doing, some digging for us as well to look at which policies that we need to tighten up and update, because we need to get on. We've kind of gotten a delayed process because of the amount of work and meetings on with the budget. But I do agree with you getting back to that 4-member subcommittees. So dragging everybody up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver or Mrs. Sullivan, anything refer to subcommittee? Any comments on that?
Nothing.
Okay.
No thing.
Okay, thank you. Agenda 4 is consent agenda. It's A and B. A is request for authorization to submit proposals and expenditures of funds, FY 2025 renewal of the CPPI from the Mass Department of Early Childhood and Care in the amount of $1 million even. FY 2025 funding from the McKenty-Vento Homeless Education Grant in the amount of $50,000 even. And then FY 2025 Massachusetts Cultural Council Grant in the amount of $2,500. It's the will of the committee at this time.
Motion
I
to,
would like to remove letter A, excuse me.
Okay, to take A collectively, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
second.
Second, motion was made by Mrs. Sullivan. It was properly seconded by Ms. Azak. I'll read the roll right now. Mrs. Sullivan? Judy, did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. A passes those 3 items.
Chair, I apologize. It's A and B.
No, it was just A at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just A. Now we're on B, which is the acceptance of human resources notifications, appointments non-certified. Is there a motion?
Motion accept.
Ms. Azak made a motion.
Okay, motion to accept on the consent agenda, item B, the acceptance of human resources notifications, appointments, and non-certified.
Okay, motion was made by Ms. Azak, properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. I'll read the roll. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
I'm yes as well, so B passes as well. We will go on now to number 5, unfinished business. I did speak to legal counsel attorney Kevin Brejnahan. Discussion and potential vote for FY 2025 budget really shouldn't be on this agenda. It was just on the subcommittee. We passed it out favorable. Next week, we will have a special school committee meeting at 7 o'clock here in the Little Theater. But prior to that, at 6 o'clock, we will have the mandated public hearing. So next Tuesday, June 11th, 6 p.m. public hearing in here, the Romm Little Theater, Brockton High, followed by 7 o'clock FY 25 budget special school committee meeting for purposes of passing as a whole school committee. And again, that's 1 week prior to the 18th, which will be the city council school budget that night. So there is no matter on agenda 5 at this time. We will go on to 6, new business. Any new business before us?
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes, Mrs. Sullivan.
I'm sorry, I meant to remove letter A, renewal of CPPI from Mass Department of Early Childhood and Care.
Do you want to talk on that?
I just wanted to make a comment on that one.
Sure. I mean, we've already voted it, but sure. The will of the chair. Yep, go
No,
ahead.
it's okay that we already,
Yep.
I just wanted to
Please.
make-
Yep, the floor is yours.
okay. I just wanted to point out on consent agenda, renewal of CPPI from the Mass Department of Early Childhood and Care grant. This is a grant that's a really important grant that I've been working on with Dr. Julianne Andre, and it's been going on for a year. This is going to be the second school year submission of the grant for $1 million. I believe it's $1 million. This grant has 3 strands to it. The first strand is community-wide expansion of access of preschool and quality care. The second strand is bringing locally aligned quality and equitable access to special education and Inclusion Care Strand 3. As I said, this is the second year of implementation. The action steps Strand 1 include providing a pre-K experience and wraparound care for 18 families at Brockton Day Nursery, 13 families at the Y Early Learning Center, enhancing transitions from pre-K to kindergarten and building a more robust model of family engagement. Students with IEPs, children who are experiencing homelessness or without permanent housing, or those who are English language learners, receive the highest priority. With this CPPI grant awarded in April 2024, we will partner with the Adult Learning Center to provide families who are enrolled up to 10 seats for pre-K, wraparound care for Brockton Day Nursery. We also begin a new partnership with the Old Colony YMCA. We will continue to use CPPI funds to subsidize early education care with our EEC licensed partners, Head Start, Brockton Day Nursery, and Y Early Learning Center into the summer. The CPPI grant is funding the Bright Beginning Summer Camp, two-week sessions in conjunction with the community schools of Brockton, where up to 110 children can attend a 2-week full-day session at no cost to families. This includes transportation. The Strand 2 will begin over the summer as we study curriculum in teams and develop learning goals that prepare all students for kindergarten. Related to Strand 3, BPS will expand on its itinerant model, special education pilot, with the BPS Special Education and Head Start providing itinerant special education services for children enrolled in Head Start classrooms. We will assemble and train an itinerant team and conduct an audit to determine alignment of Brockton's current early childhood transitional practices with state guidelines and best practices. And I want to thank Dr. Julianne Andre and her team from the Brockton Day Nursery, Head Start, the Brockton Y Early Learning Center. They're even going into homeless shelters in our city and addressing early childhood needs. This grant is a very important grant, and I would like Dr. Andre sometime to present to the school committee the awesome work that this grant has been able to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. Appreciate that summarization, and we would welcome her to come and appear before us. Thank you very much. Agenda 6, new business. Any new business before us tonight? Vice Chair?
The only thing that I, myself, the subcommittee on the search for the interim superintendent position, the job ad does expire June 7th, which is this Friday. If we could meet, also working with Mass Glencuchin, our legal counsel, we could either meet on the 10th, which is on a Monday, or the 11th, prior to our budget hearing, the 4 members, because it is a subcommittee, because we do have to post that. So if it's Monday, we have to post it by, Thursday, and if we do want to schedule that for the Tuesday, if we can meet, I don't think we need more than an hour to meet as a subcommittee to go over the applicants and then make a recommendation to the committee, so we can schedule the open interview process. And I was looking at either the 20, because our next schedule, we have the budget hearing, we can schedule, I know we advertised it for this person to come in July. However that process works, if we can actually schedule it on the 27th, where we moved our meeting, we can add that to the agenda with the interview process for the interim. I'm not sure if anybody's available or concurs with that. Does that look like a timely? So we could meet on the 11th at 5 p.m. and vet all the applicants, and then we can also schedule a pre-interview if we wanted to. Kevin, if you can chime in on this, or we can just vet that out, top 3 or 2, and we can schedule that for the 27th, where we would do a open interview process. Is that so?
So 5 o'clock next Tuesday, the 11th. Yep.
That works.
Okay.
Just as a reminder, I would be remote but available.
Yeah,
Okay.
we still have the remote capabilities.
Can we do
Mrs.
5:30?
Oliver?
Ms. Oliver?
Can we do 5:30?
We meet at 6. I just want to give, I don't know how many applicants we're going to receive. I just want to make sure that we have ample time and that we can work with council on Friday, if we can get all the applications via email to all the members, and we can do a review.
Attorney Breslan?
I think what the vice chair is referring to is the meeting of the preliminary screening committee. I assume you would want MASC in attendance at that meeting as well?
Correct.
So we'll need to coordinate with them on scheduling. I think certainly an hour minimum. I wouldn't go any less than an hour if the idea is to review applications and decide on next steps, whether that's just a recommendation to the full committee of finalists or the preliminary screening committee can conduct interviews in executive session itself if it so chooses. But I think perhaps a discussion with MASC and a review of the applications to begin with would be a good first step. But I want to be sure you give yourself enough time.
Yeah, Tuesday won't work then. 5:30 to 6 wouldn't work, right? So we can pick another day.
Okay.
But we need, time is of the essence, so we need to, I don't know if Wednesday or Thursday works next week, but.
I could be available any of those days. I'll be remote.
Yep.
those days, but I'm available.
I'll coordinate with I'll coordinate with the vice chair tomorrow, because the biggest thing is we need to make sure masks will be available. Okay? But we'll definitely meet next week.
Okay.
Any other new business to go before us? Seeing none, I know Sergeant Livingston is here. I did speak to Chief Brenda Perez. Sergeant, thank you for your patience. School safety and security, police liaison, again, Sergeant Mike Livingston.
Also, Mayor,
Brockton is
I'd
here
like
too.
to introduce our new school police commanding officer, Lieutenant Banaka. That's your Sergeant Livingston.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. Before I give you the safety update, I want to introduce the new CEO to the school police over at Brockton High, Lieutenant Paul Banaka. We've worked together previously on the city side. He brings a wealth of wisdom, experience, and enthusiasm. I'm going to turn it over to him and introduce himself to you.
Thank you, Sergeant Livingston. So to be brief, my experience, this is my 29th year as in the police department. Of those 29 years, 21 years have been in the detective division. So my experience extensively with investigations and also with supervising investigations, from being a detective to then the commanding officer of the detective division. Also, retired from my position as being the commanding officer of the Special Reaction Team, which is Brockton Police's tactical team. And also started and am the commanding officer of the what you'd call the drone unit, which we did use for the graduation, which was very successful. So in terms of my role here as the new school liaison, the number one goal is school safety, and the number 100th goal is school safety. As an aside, also, to be the liaison to the school police officers. Obviously, with the school police officers, they are school department employees, but their police powers come from the Brockton Police Department. So with that, we have to ensure that the school police officers, they use their powers judiciously, and they follow Mass General laws, procedure, and also local ordinances. So that's our role as supervisors. That's our main focus. But obviously, number one is school safety. We're going to be conducting a school safety assessment, myself and Sergeant Livingston, at Chief Perez's request, and I know that DESE has also funded a separate school assessment, so we are going to collaborate with them to come up with a combined effort in order to maximize that goal. So if there isn't any questions, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Sergeant Livingston. And I also would like to say that I took a walk inside the schools with Sergeant Livingston, and I'm very impressed with the rapport that Sergeant Livingston has with the faculty, staff, and the students. I think he's a credit to the Brockton Police Department, and he's a wonderful individual and sergeant for the school system. He's a real credit to the schools.
Thank you.
Sergeant Livingston.
Thank you.
And just to echo what Paul's saying, we'll utilize his skill set just to touch off on some of the training that we're still doing right now. And we have 2 officers in our alert training that is advanced law enforcement reaction response team. And that's for active shooter. Hopefully that'll never come our way, but we want to be tactfully ready, the best practices, and those officers that are in that training will be combined with Lieutenant Banaka to come back and train all of our other school officers in conjunction, working with Brockton School Police, regular municipal side of police to tailor our safety plans for our and enhance what we already have in place throughout all our campuses. And then going on with the what has been going on with our safety and training, we held our last CBJJ meeting on the 28th. And Mayor, if you recall back in November when we had an uptick of violence, we put that request right to you. You made that call to Tim Cruz, and we put that CBJJ meetings right back into effect. And those have been such a collaborative effort to really bring all our different agencies together to kind of come together and see what the best way to tend to our children's needs and to make this place safe. Paul makes another great point. The paramount is safety. One thing I've noticed in our schools that I love, that our kids come in and we want to make sure that they're nourished so they can come in and they can just focus in on their grades. But we want to make it so safe that there's no thought of violence or anything. Yes, they're getting nourished and sustenance, but we want them to have their minds where they can challenge each other just to continue to have their academic endeavors. So that is and I echo that with you, Paul, that safety is a #1 priority here. Also, what we've been doing is Handle with Care. There's another function that we do with the school police. Unfortunately, when our children are sometimes involved in traumatic events and come in contact with the police, that's where I step in. It's a pivotal role that I can inform the administration, the staff, that our children may have been in a traumatic event, so we can actually get them the assistance they need when they come to class and come to school. And then Dan Vigian, he was here early today. We also are wrapping up at the end of the year with the Gaggle alerts. Gaggle is a software that we install in all our computers for our children, and it picks up on different language and words that use it to alert us that if our children are in possible danger. So that has actually worked to a T for us, preventing our kids from doing harm to one another or to themselves. So we're having our wrap up. We already had our assessment of that. We're implement some new policies and new different updates that we had with the software to help us to be able to help our kids even more. On a really positive note, June 11th, we're going to have our Special Olympic Games. That I'm really excited about that. I'll be there to carry the torch, if you will, with our special needs athletes, and I'm just excited that we're all going to be there. And it just sheds another light of how our school police and our municipal side are not just law enforcement, but actually part of our daily lives, the fabric of our school, and here with us. This Friday, exciting days coming up. Going to have the Edison Day graduation along with the virtual learning class and the Brockton therapeutic class. We'll be there to celebrate them and as they achieve their graduation. And this is where I kind of want to bring this to a big end and a crescendo, if you will. Last Saturday, we had the graduation. We all were there, and it was a blazing success. But it was only a success because of everyone that contributed to it, and even our graduates and their families. We all made it about the students and not about ourselves, and made a celebratory event. And I just have to thank the chief for allowing Lieutenant Banaka to have his drone team there. That the eye in the sky really helped keep the whole place safe and just secure. I had to give it up to the fire department with Chief Nardelli and Deputy Chief Joe Pasquale. His team was there acquiring Brewster to help us assist, and we actually had to use a medical team there, the Brockton Police, the Brockton School Police, and even Eddie Williams reaching out to the state police to get some specialty canines out there, along with Sergeant Bob DeLito and his canine assets to bring it in. Ken Thomas and the facility team, and the person, Stephen Hook and Anthony Fowler with BEMA, allowing us to use their mobile command center to house our drone team. But I really want to give it up to Brockton High School staff. Miss Umbriana and Elvon, the communications that we had between one another to make this whole thing come together. I really want to throw the flowers and give them the hats off to them. So, in conclusion, that graduation really shows what we are all about. It was about family, it was about education, it was about overcoming, it was about us being champions. And I thank you allowing me to work with you guys. Jorge, I got you. It's a real hectic time right now as we end the year, but I'm looking forward to work with Paul and in the continuing years to come and be at your service. So having said that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you, Lieutenant. For Agenda 8 announcements, I kind of already said it, but again, next Tuesday, if you could please put this on your calendar, June 11th, 6 p.m. here in Little Theater will be the Brockton FY 2025 school budget public hearing. And at 7 o'clock, we're going to have a special school committee specific to the 25 budget, so we can vote on that officially and get it back to the city council. Any other announcements at this time? Ms. Azak, followed by Mr. Vega, followed by Mr. Gomes.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Gomes, Claudio Gomes, and Carla on their upcoming nuptials this Friday. So we wish you best of luck, Mr. Gomes. Congratulations to you and your bride.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. So I am getting married on Friday.
Awesome.
So next week I will be remote.
Yes.
These are important decisions, but I will be present. Might join a bit later, but we'll see.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Mr. Vega?
Just keeping brief, as a reminder to folks, Ward 1 is hosting a family forum tomorrow at West Middle School at 7 o'clock. We will have Principal McCaskill from the high school, community mentor William Wells, and myself having a discussion about the transition from middle school to the high school here in Brockton. So everyone, regardless of ward, is welcome to come, but especially the parents of middle schoolers.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair, please.
Sorry. I just want to, first of all, I know he left. I just want to thank Jordan for working very hard in updating a lot of the events that's happening across the district. If members have some time to attend, today I was at the elementary field day here at the high school, and tomorrow we'll have the middle school. And then on the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, is the Special Olympics. It's as Sergeant Livingston said, it's a great event. I go every year, and seeing these students compete. So if people want to clear their schedule and support our students, and letting them know that we are involved in making sure that they have all the tools necessary, not just in the classroom but outside as well. So. And then we also have the retirement dinner, which is on Thursday at 6. I heard we have Kevin Hart as the MC. I don't know how we afford that, but so Dr. Cobbs has a lot of shoes to fill on that one. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Ms. Azak, did you have a follow-up? No? Mr. Sullivan? Ms. Oliver or Mrs. Sullivan?
No, thank you.
All set.
I had the honor to go today to West Middle School to see the concert. It was the band and choral. They did a 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and they did one tonight when we were here. But I was able to check out the 6th graders, the mayor, but also as a dad, and those kids were phenomenal. So kudos to everybody that did that today at West Middle School. Anything else for you, Dr. Cobbs, at this time? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll read the roll. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. I do want to recognize Kim Gibson, the BEA president, and Kevin McCaskill, the Brockton High principal. They always come here. We thank him for that. And Attorney Bresnahan, thank you very much. Drive careful. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.